Today we're going to be talking about the comedy of Thor Ragnarok. I've got Thor here, I've got Hulk, they're battling it out, they're brawling. I've got my statue for Korg here. It's a little rock. It's comparable to Korg from Thor Ragnarok. It's one of Hulk's Battleborn. And got my Korg here, so to get in there. Anyway, the comedy in Thor Ragnarok. Mini review. I do really like the film. Now, the comedy really hits in certain points, but in other points it's too much. It doesn't hit. It doesn't fit. It doesn't work. Now, what the director's name? I keep forgetting it because it's such an uncommon name. Watanabe. Anyway, he plays Korg in the film. He was like one of Hulk's Battleborn or whatever in the comics, but not so much in the film. He also directed the film, and he's responsible for a great deal of the comedy involved. There's also a little bit of improv in the film, which is nice. I often like that in films. Like a great deal of the comedic beats in Avengers were improvisational from like Robert Downey Jr. and stuff, and Mark Ruffalo. He was good in this film also. Anyway, War Machine's turned around the wrong way. In Thor Ragnarok, there are several points where the comedy really hits. It's really funny. It's lighthearted. It's good. However, there are quite a few bits where the tension's high. Spoilers, by the way. Where the tension's high, the world's in danger. Somebody's dead. Somebody's just died, or somebody's about to die. It's a very dramatic moment for the characters involved, and it's very dramatic turn for the story as a whole, and it should be treated as such, but instead we're met with a great deal of comic relief in those instances. Now there's a bit in the film where, Ragnarok has actually occurred, the prophecy has come true, and Korg's like, the foundation's still there, we can build up again, we can rise above the darkness and start anew. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about, isn't it? Friendship. It's about overcoming hardships, or whatever he says. And then the flaming monster man strikes his sword down into the foundation of Asgard, and it all blows up. And he's like, oh, never mind. And he goes on. But obviously, Korg's a funny character. He's a comic relief of the film. I mean, everybody's a comic relief character in this film, but Korg especially. And he's a good character. I like him. He's very funny. And I'll be sad if I don't see him again. However, there's moments like that where it just doesn't fit. There are moments where it should be purely tense, purely dramatic. You can't be compelled by the story. You can't be you cannot become emotional. You cannot become invested in the plot. There are no stakes if you get instant relief comically, because something terrible will happen. Something that should be like an important tense moment, an important character building moment. And all of a sudden Korg comes along. It's like, oh, got me rock, paper, scissors, which I shouldn't know about because I'm an alien from the other side of the galaxy. And that's something that bothered me too, like this sort of human culture that's integrated in these alien species and stuff. Like, what? How does Korg know what rock, paper, scissors is? He wouldn't know what paper or scissors were, and even if there are versions of those materials from his home planet, they wouldn't be called the same thing, certainly. The statistical likelihood of such an occurrence would be astronomically small. You couldn't calculate it. It would be Just replace it with an I value, you know, an imaginary number. Um, but the problem is, outside of that is, as I said, like there are a few character deaths, like Odin and stuff, and it should be a very important moment, a very emotional moment in the film, and it is for a short minute, and then Hela comes in, which is fine, but I don't feel like they respected the character enough. I don't feel that they gave it quite enough time to sort of pan out. Didn't give quite enough time for the characters to react before they move on to Hela and stuff. And the running theme, the running joke of like who is the strongest Avenger is very funny. But like a lot of, honestly, Mark Ruffalo's role kind of felt like shoehorned in. This is the first of a 3-part Hulk storyline, and honestly, the Hulk stuff, the battles were cool, but the Hulk stuff really didn't do much for me. At least, like, I thought it was cool that Hulk talked, but none of the characters were really likable in those moments. Like, Mark Ruffalo, I love the Bruce Banner character from Avengers and stuff, and I love Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner. But I found him to be, like, a little unlikable. I like the sort of trauma he's going through, but even his trauma is immediately downplayed by the comedy, and nothing can feel like it's important in the film. And so the film is only memorable for the comedic moments that hit. It's not memorable for the characters aside from Korg. It's not memorable for the compelling story, and it's not memorable for what it did to the Marvel Universe. And it did really shake the Marvel Universe as well as Asgard to its core. But it didn't feel like it did. It didn't feel like an important movie. It didn't feel like it set anything up. It didn't feel like it tied up any loose ends. But it did. But nobody. It doesn't. That doesn't stick with you because it's all underplayed by the comedy of the film. And I already touched upon this. I'm trying to dance around some of the stuff I already covered in my last video essay, like the problem with the MCU. I guess it's more of a rant than an essay. It's a verbal essay, I would say. But Spider-Man: Homecoming is a great example of the perfect balance between comedy and drama. Iron Man's another good example of that. The first Iron Man film. Iron Man 3 to a lesser degree, but Avengers as well. Avengers had its very dramatic moments where Iron Man was taking the nuke into the portal, and it was a very important moment, and his trauma from that carried over into the next film. And it didn't feel too odd with Tony Stark, because Tony Stark does sort of like hide his emotion behind the mask of wit and comedy and humor. Which are all the same thing, really. So it works in that sense. But Thor's a very, or at least a somewhat serious character, and I know he's less so in the MCU, which is fine, but he really should be more affected by the things that happen to him and to the people that he purports to care about in the film. And it doesn't hit with any force. Anyway, my point in summary is Marvel's capable of producing very good films, and I think Thor Ragnarok is getting too much credit right now. I think it's a lovely film. I think it's great. However, I'm taken out of it every time something like that I should care about happens, and I'm becoming invested in the film. Did I say in twice? I'm becoming invested in the film, and all of a sudden, Korg comes along, or Loki comes along, or something comes along, and they make a joke, and it ruins the whole moment. There were some good back and forth bits between Loki and Thor in the film that I thought were really great. There's some good witty banter between Thor and Loki and Thor and Hulk and stuff. I didn't like how obnoxious Valkyrie was for the first 2 acts. Uh, I the point is, uh, it's a very good film, but when it fails, it really fails, and it takes you out of the film, and it takes time to get reinvested in what you're watching. And when you're slapped in the face over and over and over again, like they're essentially calling you stupid for taking the film seriously, because they don't take it seriously themselves, which is a problem. How is anybody else supposed to take you seriously if you don't take yourself seriously? So every time you get invested in the film, they slap you across the face and take you out of the film, and it's harder each time to get back in. And by the end of the film, I really wasn't invested anymore. And that's a problem, because I should walk away from a film like, wow, you know, that's very tense. That was very emotional. But it wasn't. It was a good film. It was a funny film. I had a good time. But it doesn't really go beyond fun. There's nothing profound about it. There's nothing that's going to keep me waiting for the next film, because it's. I don't know that there's going to be another Thor film, but there's nothing that like really makes me excited to see what happens to the characters in the film. But yeah, that's it really. I know I've been ranting for a long time, and there's not been any real structure or anything like that. I'm also stumbling on my words quite a bit because I'm talking relatively out of order. I'm just sort of bouncing back and forth between points. But yeah, good film. I'm excited for Thor's new hammer, which is a more ultimate take on the hammer. And I was a little confused with like the Thor Force or whatever, which I was fine with it. It was just like, why all of a sudden, when he's electric, can the I shouldn't say all of a sudden. Why is it that when he's pulsing with this, he's outputting so much energy, so much electrical energy? Why is it that when that occurs, the taser net still affects him? He's supposed to be the god of thunder and stuff, so he can control lightning and in essence electricity. So why is it that a shock from a little taser net can bring down Thor Force or Odin Force Thor? It shouldn't. I know they needed a reason or a way to end the fight such that neither character really won, like Stan Lee would do in the comics. But I've gone on too long. We're gonna end this. Hope you enjoyed my really unorganized, unprofessional video. These guys are cool. That's how I have them posed up on my shelf most of the time. For several months they've been like this. Anyway, bye. I gotta stop myself before I keep going. Adios.